early week edition of College Sports Now. I've been looking forward to doing this show since the wee hours of Saturday night. Okay, why? Because obviously week 6 was a bloodbath. Okay, 5 top 11 teams going down. Should have been 6. But Miami found a way to eke it out in Berkeley. Roddy Jones from ESPN hanging out with us. The doctor is in. Trip Hurd, kind enough to grace us with his presence from his home studio. Basketball season has begun for the doctor. Duke had Midnight Madness over the weekend, so the Cooper Flag era is off and running in Durham. You love to see it. We got a lot to get to. Kevin Ingram from Vanderbilt's going to be stopping by in about 30 minutes. He was on the sidelines for Vandy, Alabama. So as much as I want to unpack what happened there in Nashville, and Roddy, I know you're a huge Music City guy. You love Broadway. You love to get after it there.
Yeah.
We'll save most of that for Kevin when he joins us in about a half an hour. But look, obviously Saturday was one of those days. In chronological order, let's go through this as the day kind of unfolded. Number 9, Missouri loses at A&M.
No.
Don't call it an upset. A&M was favored. I just want to preface that A&M was favored.
Number 9, Missouri got that ass kicked in College Station, Bryan College Station. Let's call a spade a spade. They didn't lose. They had their entire hopes and dreams smashed by Mike Elko in them boys.
They really did. Connor Wegman got the start, which at the time I was like, are you sure that's the right play? He looked awesome. Wegman looked great. And look, Missouri kicked a field goal with like 2 seconds left in the game. It was 34-0 at halftime.
Drinkwitz trying to hit the over.
Yeah, bad beat. The over-under in that game was affected by Missouri kicking a field goal.
Yes, it was.
I don't know if that hurt you, Doctor. I don't know if that was on your radar, but yeah, tough scenes if you had the under there. Regardless, as the day kind of played out, right? Alabama goes down at Vanderbilt. That was the mid-afternoon game. That was an absolute shocker. The biggest stat to me, which I'll bring up when Kevin joins the show, 42 minutes time of possession for Vanderbilt in that game.
I don't know that I've seen that this year. Like that big a discrepancy in time of possession. We've seen some, like when Ole Miss lost, Kentucky had the ball for like 39 minutes, and that was a shocker. 42 minutes of possession is unbelievable for a college football game, especially one where it's Vanderbilt. Like, I know we're celebrating Vanderbilt this week, but still Vanderbilt. They had the ball for 42 minutes. That's insane.
Did that stat make it on the SiriusXM airwaves earlier this week with you, Roddy? Did any of your producers pull that out of the hat for you?
No.
Yeah, you're welcome.
No.
No. Just putting that out there.
I think we talked about it, but no.
Fascinating game, and we'll get into the anatomy of the upset, but the Diego Pavia build the statue today, right now. I mean, that is – I know Vanderbilt's won national championships in baseball, okay? They have a proud basketball program. I know they've been down in recent years, but Tripp's shaking his head. I wouldn't
call it proud.
Okay. I wouldn't either. I mean, and when you say recent year, like I don't think Vanderbilt's been good in my lifetime in basketball.
I mean, Kevin Stallings had that thing rolling, okay? I mean,
Define
Bryce Drew
rolling.
for a couple of years had that thing, competitive. Jerry Stackhouse drove it into the earth. I mean, but still, my point here is what Vanderbilt
You said that as
Saturday
if like
night.
Vanderbilt was like Florida's basketball program, like proud tradition in basketball. That's what I would say for Florida.
My point is, Roddy, and look, I know you take hoop season off. One does not simply stroll into Memorial Gymnasium in Nashville. That's all I'm saying, okay? Historically, that's a tough place to play. It's a converted opera house. My point is, for me, 41-year-old male, that is the highlight of Vanderbilt's athletic achievement in my lifetime. Was what happened Saturday. Like, I don't think that's hyperbolic. I really don't.
Maybe we'll ask about it. I think national championships certainly top that because you are at the top, the pinnacle of the sport. Winning a regular season game against the shell of an Alabama team without Nick Saban.
Shell of an Alabama team. Okay.
Not quite the same.
That's a take.
What do you mean that's a take? Saban never lost to Vanderbilt. It's a shell of its former self.
Lost to Louisiana Monroe.
This first year when he took over an abject disaster of a program, and then the next year, what happened? They got Mark Ingram, and they got a lot better. And the year after that, what happened? They won a national championship.
Man, you got to stop watching Feinbaum every afternoon.
A shell.
Wow. You got to take Feinbaum hours away from
What do you mean?
I don't think this is
the low point. This is the low point of the history of Alabama football.
I mean, certainly it's a stain. it's is it the low point of Alabama football? Let's see what happens the next 7 weeks.
Alabama history.
Okay, all right.
Now they may rebound.
So Missouri goes down. That's the number 9 team. Alabama goes down, and you're looking at the night slate, and you're like, okay, where do we go from here? Number 4, Tennessee loses at Arkansas 19-14. Ugly game from the Vols, who the doctor had crowned as the best team in college football just a couple weeks ago.
I told you to quit that drug, man.
Michigan loses at Washington. Don't call it an upset. Washington was favored. Michigan's a fraud. And then USC kind of gets bossed by Minnesota in kind of like a carbon copy of what happened when they went to the Big House to play Michigan just a couple weeks prior. Just can't stop Minnesota running the football. So
welcome to the Big
when it was all said and done, when the dust settled, you had 5 teams in the top 11 all lose. I don't want to talk about this week's AP poll. I think there's some minor crimes that are being committed with that AP poll.
The AP poll's dumb, man.
The AP poll is what it is, man. It exists because writers need jobs. Like, I understand, but Penn State at 4, like, that's offensive on many, many levels. Regardless, it was a wild Saturday.
You're offended by Penn State at 4?
Yeah, I'm offended by Penn State
like,
at 4.
There are much more egregious overlooks in this poll than Penn State at 4. Penn State at 4 is whatever. Like, they're undefeated. You bump them up, whatever. Like, I think the whole thing, first off, Georgia's ahead of Alabama. I believe those two teams played not too long ago. Do you recall that game?
Yes,
like, do you remember how that game went?
Yeah.
Georgia's ahead of Alabama.
Georgia had a chance to win it on the final play and didn't.
Yeah, but they didn't win, and they're ahead of Alabama. Tennessee lost to Arkansas. Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky. They're all ahead of Clemson, who lost to frickin' Georgia. What are we doing, people? What's going on with that? Texas A&M's got to win at home against the number 9 team in the country, and they're behind a few jamokes that just, piddling. Like Texas A&M's behind Notre Dame. Do you remember who Notre Dame lost to? Sorry, I can't quite. Northern Illinois. Thank you. There we go. All right. Like, this is so stupid. It's so stupid. I know Notre Dame beat Texas A&M, but by the fact that Georgia's ahead of Alabama, none of this stuff matters. Like, if you want to get mad about Penn State at 4, sure. But the idiocy of the AP poll happens after that. The complete just ridiculousness of it. Also, the fact that we've got 2 teams tied at 11 and 3 teams tied at 18. Like, make a decision, AP poll.
I agree completely. I looked through the whole thing. They don't even have Florida State on there after we've got a new quarterback and we've got a play almost covered against Clemson. This thing is just dumb.
Roddy has left the camera. I don't know where he is. Oh, there he is. Got it. You were in Tallahassee. Florida State's a bad football team. I'm just curious if you had any reactions from what you saw. Clemson looked kind of bored.
That's a great way to put it. Someone was asking me, like, what do you think about Clemson? And I said, look, it's really tough to tell with Clemson the past 2 weeks. The Stanford game, obviously because of what happened with Hurricane Helene north of Clemson, northwest of Clemson, in the upstate, further in the upstate of South Carolina and western North Carolina, the effect on the Clemson football team was sort of, and rightfully, overshadowed. But they didn't get to stay in their team hotel Friday night because it had no power. They got sent home. They stayed in their dorm rooms. They had to come back to the facility. They hung out in the facility all day. It was just a completely different routine. And then they were playing a Stanford team that came out with a completely different game plan. They won that game handily, but it was kind of tough to tell just because like so many weird things. Then they go down to Florida State and it looks easy early on. And they're like, we got this. And they were bored. They were like a tiger playing with like a little mouse toy, just kicking it down. And then when they got in the red zone, Florida State would bow up and stop them. And then it kicked the field goal. 7 field goals Clemson had to kick. 2 of them got blocked. Like they were like 2 for 6 in the red zone or something, or 4 for 6 in the red zone, 1 red zone touchdown. It was a ridiculously understandably uninspiring performance. Because I think Clemson was ready for a fight. And then early on, when they didn't get one, they're like, okay,
we're good.
Well, can you talk to FSU Twitter right now about Brock Glenn a little bit? What'd you see out of him? Because apparently a lot of Florida State fans have a little hope right now for the future with what they saw. What did you think about Brock?
Yeah, Brock's got a little ish to him. Like he's got an attitude. I think that offense just felt more energetic with him in there.
Yeah.
It's still not good, but it felt more energetic. And if you want hope for the future, this is not this year future. This is next year future.
Well, okay, we'll see.
Brock Glenn will compete for the starting job next year, I think. If you're a Florida State fan, you hope he loses it, because I don't think he's good enough to be a Florida State quarterback at the level that they need him to be. Now, he can develop into that, but I don't think it happens in an offseason. I think it's probably year after next where he is that guy that can lead you to a championship. He is mobile, and I think that there's, again, a sort of moxie to him that can inspire a team. And look, all of this is aside if they get really good players around him. And I think there's reason for optimism that there are really good players on the roster. The two freshman tight ends that played, Amari Williams and Landon Thomas, those guys are talented. Now, they're freshmen and their liabilities in the run game right now, so you can't really play them reliably, but they're better than Kyle Morlock because he's a liability in the pass game. So you sort of, trade one liability for another. So we'll see, man. Like, Florida State's not going to a bowl. Florida State's probably going to win like 2 more games. The defense is still the thing where you're like, come on, man, why aren't you better there? I thought their corners actually played inspired in this game. Thought Azaria Thomas and Fintrell Cypress probably played one of their best games. There's just too many places where they're where you have guys that are either not talented enough to play at a championship level or are not bought in enough to like playing selflessly to have it really take off. So that's my assessment of Florida.
Thank you. We have absolutely reached.
You
our
see
quota
how
on
bad
Florida
Hartzell wants
State.
to change the subject?
We have absolutely reached our quota on Florida State.
Yeah, look, I understand that you want to change, but like Florida State this is a 13-0 team last year that's now 1-5. And so I understand that you're like, this is a bad football team, we want to move on. But like the assessment of Florida State throughout the season is going to continue, because we need to look at like what Florida State's going to be next year. And it started this week. They played a ton of true freshmen. Brock Glenn played at quarterback. So it's worth going in.
Sure. I think there's 8 more interesting teams in the ACC. Just right now, like off the
absolutely
top of my head.
Not.
No,
Oh,
that's
come on,
just
man. We don't want to talk about
that's
SMU.
one of the worst
We don't want to
comments.
talk
Okay,
about
that's
Washington,
one.
Chapel Hill.
Give me
we don't want to
8.
talk
Give me
about
8 more.
Virginia, Pitt.
No, we don't want to talk about Virginia. We can
Why
talk
not?
about
Virginia.
Virginia's 4-1. They're 2-0 in the ACC.
Virginia's 4-1, and they still might not make a bowl game. Look at the rest of that schedule. So I
understand
understand what you're
talking about. People
I
are
agree.
exhausted with the Florida State talk. They're done.
Here's your mention of
no,
and
they love it. That's why they keep
clamoring for Virginia talk.
clicking.
Dude, I cover the league and I don't want to talk Virginia. And I love Tony Elliott. I hope they make a bowl game. Anthony Calandria has done a really nice job this year. Here's your Virginia talk. They've got a brutal second half of the schedule. They're 4-1, and I hope they make a bowl game. They deserve it. What Tony Elliott has done is build it to this point is one of the most underreported and under-talked about things in the ACC. When they get to 6 wins, then we'll crown them. But like it is a tough road. It is a
fraud
tough
watch
road to
in
get
Charlottesville Saturday. Louisville comes to town. They're favored by more than a touchdown. That's disrespectful.
It's not a fraud watch. It's the fact that this is who's favored by Virginia's not favored, are they?
Louisville's favored on the road in Scott Stadium. One does not just walk into that place. You know all about it, Roddy.
Dude, JMU came in there and won last year. Like
do not disparage the finest football program in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Okay?
What happened to James Madison last week?
They got caught looking ahead.
So who's the finest?
They knew that
that's
one
why
of
you
their
wanted
more
to. That's why you wanted to talk
famous
Virginia.
alums was going to be there on Thursday night for
you
the Coastal
actually
game.
wanted to talk about the finest program in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I got it. I wanted to talk about Virginia because they're the best.
I'm
were they
tired of
looking
talking
ahead
about
to?
the same 10
Coastal
teams in college
Carolina.
football. We're done.
Oh,
with
there
Florida
you go.
State.
Yeah, the
Put 'em in
powerhouse.
That's a
freezer for
spot
this
there.
year.
The powerhouse out of Conway.
Put them in the freezer. We're done with those guys. I'm fascinated with what's going on in the ACC, man. Georgia Tech bounced back. Nice win over Duke. You love to see it. North Carolina's down so bad. NC State's down maybe even worse. Like, it was a fascinating weekend as the world turns in the Atlantic Coast Conference, Roddy. Come on.
Yeah.
I haven't even talked about Miami and Cal, which was an incredible game. 25-point rally. Let's go.
We'll do our ACC talk. I would start with Miami. First and foremost, it's a bad look for the league that twice now there is a play that goes to review that the college football world feels like should go one way, against Miami, and it goes the other way for Miami. This is 2 times in a row because that targeting call, I've had it from former officials. That's a targeting. It's booth initiated. For whatever reason, it ends up not being called targeting. We don't get an explanation.
Maybe because it was 2:30 in the morning in Charlotte when they're reviewing that. Maybe.
Maybe because the director of officiating of the ACC is from Miami too. I don't know. Maybe. I'm just saying.
Let me get some tinfoil. Hang on. Where's my tinfoil hat?
Wait till I tell my FSU guys about that.
Al Riveron runs the officiating in the ACC. He is from Miami. Like that is just that's a fact. I say that kind of mostly jokingly, but the league, like I pay very close attention to what happens at the replay reviews of the league because I'm interested in it and I talk about it. And I paid more attention last year when we did a serious show 5 days a week. Now we do it twice a week. So I pay about, a 40% less attention or 60% less attention.
Hashtag math.
But the league last year caught a lot of flack for its replay reviews because there were 2 safety calls and then a couple of others, but 2 safety calls that went Florida State's way that should have been safeties against Miami and against Clemson. Probably should have been safeties. Were not called safeties that went Florida State's way. And then you go but in those cases, the league was pretty conservative about overturning calls on the field. This year, in the Virginia Tech game, they overturned that call, which was weird. Like I just didn't think nobody felt like there was enough. And they've got more views. They've got all this stuff. So I am willing to leave a section for like they have more information than we do. And I understand that. Here's where the communication comes in. Because the communication part with the Miami Florida State thing was a little weird. I appreciate it, but it was a little weird. Sorry, not Miami. Miami and Virginia Tech thing was a little strange. Like I didn't completely get it. I thought that there could have been a little bit more explanation, but they said the guy out of bounds touched the ball and making it dead. Okay, got it. They were pretty consistently across the board, like kind of people pushed back and said like, I don't really see that. But again, like they have more views, they got bigger TVs, they're able to sync it up, all that stuff. So I'm willing to say that. The targeting one was weird, man, because it's clearly we needed an explanation for that one because officials that saw that were like, yeah, that's targeting. Crown of the helmet. Boom, easy. So we need to know whether that was not crown of the helmet, which I've got questions about, or whether they deemed that the contact was not forcible enough, because there was definitely an indicator, and the most forcible part of that contact did not come with the crown of the helmet. However, it came with the shoulder. However, I felt like there was forcible contact with the crown of the helmet. Anyway, Miami gets the ball. Cal's tired on defense, and they score. Miami's a flawed team, and the Cam Ward experience, we've seen what that can lead to in the first half of the last 2 games. They, was asked like, what does this mean for Miami? And the answer, to be quite honest, is probably nothing. Like the truth about the ACC is that there's 2 teams that I would consider upper echelon. It's Clemson and Miami. And that's upper echelon in the country. And then I think that starts like top, 15. The rest of the league is kind of all there together, except for the 2 schools that you mentioned at the top, North Carolina and NC State. And then I would throw Wake Forest and probably Stanford in that bunch, although Wake Forest got a win over the weekend over NC State. But like Wake, the 2 Carolina schools, North Carolina and NC State, and then Stanford are probably kind of below. But everybody else is sort of in this mix that like, they could beat each other on any day. And there's like degrees to it. Like Louisville's probably towards the top. Georgia Tech's probably towards the top. So I do think there's sort of gradients to it, but Miami's not going to face a team that I think can really punish them if they're able to get past Louisville this week. After that, it's Florida State, Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake, and Syracuse. Could one of those teams beat them? Absolutely. Do I think one of those teams will beat them? Yes, I do. I don't know which one, but this Miami team's been playing with fire, and eventually they're going to get burned unless Cam Ward just keeps pulling rabbits out of his hat. But
yeah, look, in light of what we talked about to open the show, I'm not going to sit here and beat Miami up. Survive in advance. That was a hornet's nest in Berkeley, man. They got it done.
The thing is, it's the second week in a row, which is why I think the criticisms are fair.
Sure.
They did get through it, but like, dude, you should have lost to Virginia Tech, being completely honest.
That's why I gave the doctor so much shit and grief about his Tennessee take. And this was before they lost to Arkansas. Like, you can't just crown these teams when, like, the teams they're playing on the road, those players are on scholarship too. Like it's not. You're not just going to walk
Yeah,
in
but
and
those
just
players
hang
have
50
always
points on people.
those players have always been on scholarship, and you used to just walk in and hang 50 points on people. The thing about Tennessee is their defense overshadowed some of the deficiencies that they had on offense, and people like kept ignoring. And I brought it up on this show. I brought it up on other shows.
Yeah, you did.
Like the offense has not been awesome. And Nico Iamaleava has turned the ball over. And I don't think he turned the ball over in this game, but the offense was not awesome. The Squirrel White gets hurt at the end. I understand it. But then you see at the end of the game, like Nico's still a young quarterback. And so he runs out of bounds on the last play of the game instead of throwing it up to the end zone and giving somebody a chance. Like those are mistakes that young quarterbacks make, but they're also mistakes that you could kind of see coming. Like maybe not specifically, but you knew that type of mistake was well in the realm of possibility with a young quarterback who has already shown the decision-making is not flawless. So that's sort of where I am on Tennessee and where I was like, and so I think you have to go with teams that, and there's not many of these, but teams that that performances like the ones that we saw over the weekend are aberrations. I don't think that was an aberration for Tennessee. I think it was towards the less likely. Like they're not going to have that happen to them all the time with the time of possession. Talk about time of possession. Arkansas held the ball a lot. They're not going to have that happen to them every week, but they've got another one like this coming. They may not lose it, but they got another performance like this coming.
I mean, look, you go to Oklahoma, you go to Arkansas, you split those road games. Okay, you got one loss on the season. You still got Georgia coming. You have to go to Athens, beg your pardon.
Go to
and
Athens.
Then Alabama comes to your place. You split those two, 10-2, you're in. Right?
What's your confidence level that they split those two, though?
I mean, it's greater than 50%.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's probably
mine is
60%.
Way less than 50%.
I think they'll beat Alabama.
Any reason to worry about this weekend with Tennessee?
Wait, why do you think they'll beat Alabama?
I think Alabama's not as good as we thought they were for obvious reasons.
Dude, they just beat Georgia.
The game's in Knoxville, and they just lost to Alabama, or they just lost to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, that's a game. Tennessee, Alabama's a game.
Yeah, for
sure. I mean, it's a game, but I don't know how you can be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll beat Alabama. Like, dude, Alabama's a better football team than Tennessee.
We can
come
back. We can come back to Tennessee because it's in the.
You trust Nico Iamaleava over Jalen Milroe?
No, I don't. But I do like Tennessee's defense quite a bit. I do, and I wonder. And we're going to talk to Kevin Ingram here in about 5 minutes about like what the takeaways are for what Vanderbilt was able to do. I'm not saying every team can go out there and just possess the ball for 42 minutes on Bama, but I wonder if there's some takeaways, dual threat quarterbacks and the like. By the way, before we get to our guest, we were talking ACC. Roddy, you neglected to mention SMU. Can we talk just a little bit about SMU? Because
they're on the list to talk about.
Okay, I was very impressed with one Kevin Jennings over the weekend for obvious reasons. Like that guy had the game of his career, and like, what's the outlook for these guys? If you're doing the tier thing, I'm with you on Clemson, Miami, but like SMU's got to be 3, right? They've got to be the third best team in the ACC today.
Yeah, they do. I think they're a distance behind Florida State. Clemson and Miami. Not Florida State. Sorry, Doc. But the reason that you buy SMU now, if you want to buy them, is because of the schedule. And I do think they're a good football team. Don't get me wrong. But I think that to look at SMU and that team and say that's the third best team in the ACC and they're a championship contender, I think is a little premature. I think that they could make the ACC championship. They're scheduled the rest of the way. They've got an open date this week. They're at Stanford. They're at Duke, Pitt, Boston College, at Virginia, and Cal. They're not going to get through that unscathed. They've already got a loss to BYU. Obviously, Pitt's undefeated right now. So if you want to talk about teams, like you're throwing out every team in the ACC as if you want to talk about it. Pitt's undefeated. Why don't you talk about them and Eli Holstein?
I mentioned them in my 8 teams more interesting than FSU argument, but you probably didn't hear me
just because they're winning doesn't make them more interesting. But go ahead.
I find it interesting, man. Like, look, I understand there are places out there, and Roddy, you traffic in this a little bit. It's not your fault, but like, it's kind of exhausting talking about the same 8 to 12 teams in college football every
right. I understand that. And you're right. It is. But the Big 12 is infinitely more interesting than the ACC because you don't know who's going to make the championship game and you don't know who's going to win it. The ACC, it's going to be Clemson, Miami, SMU. Like some combination of those three are going to make the championship game. And obviously one of those three are going to win it. And then two of those three are probably going to make the playoff if you think that things are chalky. Now, the thing is, SMU does not play Clemson or Miami. Clemson and Miami don't play each other. So you could legitimately have three teams at 8-0 at the top of this thing, 8-0 in the league at the top of the ACC. That is a realistic possibility. I don't think it happens because I think Miami could get tripped up. I obviously think Clemson could get tripped up too, but I feel less convinced that they will get tripped up. And SMU, I don't think they make it through that schedule unscathed. I think they have at some point they trip up as well. So I would say like Clemson probably is the least likely, Miami next, and then SMU the most likely. I think SMU is a really good football team, but I think that SMU is, if you're, are they a top 25 team? Maybe, but I don't think they're a top 20 team.
There are teams out there. We can come back to this before we get to Kevin Ingram, who's waiting off stage, ready to talk some Vandy football. There are some teams with schedules that I like that nobody's talking about that could make some noise. SMU's one of them because they avoid Miami, they avoid Clemson. Their one loss is to BYU. It's a pretty good loss, right? I know it's early October. Texas A&M's another one. We may have to reevaluate the Aggies. Yeah. Like that's a team that's just out there lurking, and they could potentially be a problem.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Speaking of problems, okay, let's bring in our man Kevin Ingram. He was on the sidelines on Saturday in Nashville for Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt. Kevin, thank you for making the time for us. You've had a couple of days to kind of let this whole thing sink in. I'm just curious, like, your biggest takeaways from what you saw, what you experienced on Saturday afternoon with Vandy taking down top-ranked Alabama.
Yeah, it was just a crazy scene, Steven, and I really appreciate you guys having me on. There was a lot to process after all of that. Not just the game itself, but everything that happened afterwards. The goalpost coming down and carried all the way to the Cumberland River, which is not close to campus. It's about 2.5, 3 miles. The kids carried the goalpost through traffic and everything else and got a police escort. But as far as the game went, one of the things that a lot of people had said to me, and I totally agree over the last couple of days, is that it wasn't a fluke. Vanderbilt led from start to finish, really played well up front on both sides in the offensive and defensive lines, and those were reflected in the weekly awards from the SEC. But Vanderbilt just really played well, made big plays when they had to. When it came down to the end and you had to get a couple first downs to get the game to the finish line, they were able to accomplish that and end the game with a kneel down with the ball in your hands, which, those things don't always happen. Sometimes when you're in a situation like that and you're trying to, pull off that kind of win, you have your defense on the field and they got to make a big stop as the game comes to an end, but Vanderbilt was able to kneel it out. And it was just a really, really special night for everybody involved, including head coach Clark Lee, who's coaching at his alma mater in his hometown, a place that's super special to him. And boy, it was an amazing win, and the response and reaction has been equally amazing over the last couple of days.
Stephen got all hyperbolic a second ago and said that this was the greatest athletic achievement in the history of Vanderbilt athletics. How accurate is that? Is it?
Well, as far as football wins, Roddy, I got to think.
He went all athletics, like over the baseball national championship.
I went over everything, Kevin. I did.
That's, I'd have to maybe think about that for a little bit. You have 2 national championships in baseball. You have a lot of big wins in basketball. I think for football, certainly at the top of the list. You've had some really good teams over the years. You've had some, bowl teams and bowl wins and beaten Tennessee a few times in recent years. But I think as far as just a significant win and beating a number one team, which has never happened for this school, it's got to be at the top of the list for football. For everything, boy, I don't know. Maybe we could get our man Corbs to come on here and we can debate it with him or something. He'd probably go ahead and deflect and say, oh, yeah, that's definitely the biggest win. But it's amazing. Like wherever it ranks, either in Vanderbilt or people have asked me where it ranks in Nashville sports history too, as far as stuff that's happened in this town.
Yeah.
I saw the Music City Miracle in person in 2000. I was there for the Stanley Cup final when the Preds played the Penguins back in 2017. Those things were gigantic too. And I feel like this ranks, as far as big things that have happened in sports in Nashville, it ranks right there with all of those.
Kevin, I want to follow up on the goalpost thing, because I've been to Vanderbilt, and when I heard that it ended up in the river, I immediately went and Googled like that. Like, 'cause I don't remember seeing a lot of the. I've been to the river. I've been to Vanderbilt. I've been to Broadway. Like, am I wrong on the geography? But no, I wasn't. It's far.
Right.
At what point did the police like embrace this thing? Like, this thing is going to Broadway, and let's just get on board and just open up so nobody gets hurt. Like, I feel like Nashville embracing this is awesome.
Yeah, to me, that was one of the more entertaining parts of it, is when you saw, there's helicopters and stuff shooting this, and I don't know, drone footage or whatever, and you see police cars lining up to sort of pave the way down. West End Avenue turns into Broadway as it gets closer, in toward downtown. And to just see this whole mob of people carrying this goalpost, and you see police lights blocking the way. And some of the stories of stuff that happened between campus and downtown were really funny too. Andrew Burnett, who's the head coach of the Nashville Predators, they had played an exhibition game on Saturday, and he was coming out of Bridgestone Arena and going across the street to an event that they were having over at one of the places across from the arena. And he said about the time he got outside, the kids were coming by with the goalpost, and I think they actually dropped it on a car or something, and he helped them lift it up and get it moving again, which I thought was hilarious. There's just the people that have some sort of connection to this goalpost going by. For me, I was on the field, and it took them a while to pull it down. The goalpost didn't just like fall automatically and they carried it out of there. It took a while to get enough kids up there for the thing to break off of the stand. And I got to a point where, okay, I got to get across the street to do the post game. I got to figure out a way to get out of here. So I'm trying to weave through people, and all of a sudden here comes one of the uprights and about to take me out. And so I was able to jump out of the way, and I got to the tunnel, and I was trying to figure out in my head how they actually got it out of the stadium, because the end where that goalpost is a big construction zone. There's no way you're taking it out that way. So they went down the field. They went 110 yards to the other corner of the stadium, took it out there and got it out to West End Avenue. But there are a lot of logistics that went into getting that goalpost from the south end zone all the way to the Cumberland River, which is about 2.5-3 miles away.
Yeah, it was an awesome scene. The fact that it was Alabama too obviously contributed to that. I want to ask you, Kevin, mentioned the anatomy of the upset earlier and brought up the time of possession, which was just staggering, right? Like, you look at the box score and you're watching the game and you're just like, dude, Vandy's just they're just these prolonged drives. Like, Diego Pavia was just in blackout mode. Like, the guy couldn't miss, right? And every button he was pushing, it was like it's like if you go to the blackjack tables and you just keep getting dealt 20s and 21s all day. It's like, I'm not saying he didn't work for it, Kevin, but it was just one of those nights, right? It was just one of those nights for him. I'm curious, when you go back to the summer, and I had a chance to talk to Clark Lee at Media Days, and he talked about, look, we had to try something different. Like, you lose your best wide receiver, Will Shepherd. Like, he goes to the portal. He goes off to Colorado. Like, Vanderbilt had to do something to compete in this league. And they went to New Mexico State, and they brought in the OC. They brought in Diego Pavia, and they kind of flipped the script on how they were going to play football. And I asked Roddy earlier, because Roddy played in that triple option system at Georgia Tech with Paul Johnson. It feels to me like Vanderbilt's running service academy stuff to a certain extent with Diego Pavia. I'm just curious, you're at practice, you're around this program. There's no one better other than maybe Clark Lee or Diego Pavia to ask this question to. But what do you make of this transformation in terms of how Vanderbilt's trying to win football games?
Yeah, it really has been interesting, Stephen. And Diego, I think more than just the mechanics of running the offense, I think his attitude and sort of toughness and, the smaller quarterback who's not afraid of anybody, I think that's a big part of it too. But he's so efficient in running this offense because he had experience with Tim Beck and Jerry Kill out at New Mexico State. So he knew the offense coming in, as you mentioned, and that's a big help. That you don't have to learn a completely new system if you're Diego. And having Eli Stowers, who's been teammates with previously too is a big help, is sort of that safety valve, and a tight end you can drop the ball off to when you get in trouble, and he can make some guys miss. He's fast and athletic, and we saw those interesting little shuttle passes and things the other day. I just think this offense is really interesting because you have a lot of different ways that you can have success. You can run the option, you can pull it down and run yourself if you're Diego. You can throw a deep ball like we saw to Junior Sherrill on 4th and 1 for a 36-yard touchdown. That to me was one of the more amazing plays of the game. He just he threw it up there and Junior ran under it and got to it in the end zone. Yeah, there's just so many different ways to make this offense work, and he is so efficient at doing it. But I think his toughness is part of what sort of sets the table for it, in that he's not afraid to go out there and take a hit, run the ball himself, or he handed it off quite a bit. He ran it 20 times in that game, but Cedric Alexander also had 21 carries for 67 yards, scored a couple touchdowns. You talk about Vanderbilt's offensive line playing well. The job they did up front to block for the run game was really big, and controlling time of possession. Some games you look at time of possession, maybe it doesn't mean a whole ton. Some games it really does. And for this game for Vanderbilt, it meant everything. And really the way Vanderbilt wants to play, time of possession is really important. You have the ball 42 minutes. You keep Jalen Milroe and that Alabama offense on the sideline as long as Vanderbilt did. It's bound to serve you well, and that was a huge factor.
I agree. I think that the touchdown pass you mentioned on 4th and 1 to Junior Sherrill, like the underrated part of that play is Pavia's ability to buy enough time to let him get open downfield, just floats away from the pressure, is able to get that ball off. There's just so much moxie in there, and an F-bomb after the game with Alyssa Lang. Gotta love it before the 70 members of his family shows up for the interview.
Roddy, there are some F-bombs even before the game. So I go out there for the coin toss, and I'm holding the microphone in there, to listen to the referee and all that. And all of a sudden, all this jawing starts, and like you got Diego and you got Jalen Milroe over here, and I'm like watching this whole scene. I was like, man, I don't know if we want to, poke the bear too much right here. let's just have the coin toss.
What you didn't know is that Jalen Milroe was poking the bear.
Right, there was some of that going on too, but it was back and forth. The officials got everybody settled down. They finally tossed the coin. We got going. But yeah, there was some smack talk. There was some physical play. There was some frustration at times from both sides. I just thought it was a really interesting and intriguing game all the way around, with all the different elements that went into this game on Saturday.
I know. So with the rest of the way for Vanderbilt, like I can certainly see a path to 6. That Georgia State game just absolutely destroys you at this point,
sure.
Especially if you end up at 5. But you can certainly see a path to at least 6. With Kentucky this week, although that's going to be a tough task to rebound. Mm-hmm. They're a good team, obviously. Ball State, Texas, Auburn, South Carolina, LSU, Tennessee. I think there's some very, very winnable games. And honestly, Vanderbilt should feel like every game is winnable because you just beat the number 1 team in the land.
Yeah.
How has this changed your perspective on what's possible for this team this year?
I think it has to. And you're absolutely right about the Georgia State game. And I think everybody knew it at the time. You go down there and you're 2-0, beating Virginia Tech, and played really well against Alcorn State in the second game. But it was one of those games, just a lot of mistakes, and fell behind and had to play from behind. The game that Vanderbilt has been successful, and really the 3 games against power conference teams, they've come out, played well early, got in front, or played even, like the game at Missouri a couple weeks ago. Vanderbilt led early in that one, and it was an even game throughout a lot of the first half, and really pretty much all the way. It was a double overtime game, and that's another one you look back at, and you're trying to find a path to win enough games to get to a bowl. Every game is crucial. Georgia State was a killer. Missouri, you're ahead in overtime and have a chance to win that one with a couple stops. And you look at back-to-back weeks, Vanderbilt was ahead with a minute to play at Georgia State, even after everything that went wrong, and also in front in overtime over at Missouri a couple weeks ago, and came out with losses on both those. And yeah, when you're trying to find those wins, and every game is so crucial, boy, you just can't leave any on the table.
I'm gonna let you go on this one, Kevin. You mentioned Clark Lee earlier. The guy's coaching at his alma mater. I don't know how many folks nationally realize that, but the guy played, I believe, fullback at Vanderbilt back
in the
day.
Yep, he played fullback.
Yeah. So, like, just in that post-game interview with Coach, I'm just curious, like, it's Vanderbilt. It's obviously the toughest job in the SEC to win football games. He's just knocked off the number 1 team. He's at his alma mater. Like, that had to have been just on so many different levels. Maybe it hadn't hit him at that point in time, but just like an overwhelmingly like gratifying experience, knowing that like look, man, you've at least this week, this night, like you've silenced all of the doubters who were like, it's never going to happen here. You can't win here. Well, you just knocked off number 1 Alabama. What was that interview like for you?
Yeah, it was really cool, and he and I have, over the last 4 years, in doing the post game with him every game, we've had some that were really fun. We've had some that were really tough and heartbreaking. I was even thinking about a couple of years ago, we played at Alabama down at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and there wasn't really a good place around the locker room to do our post game. So I think we were like standing around the sinks in the bathroom to do our post game, after a really tough loss against Alabama. And I'm thinking, from there to here, and this feeling was about as different as it gets. And he walked in there to do our post-game interview at the McGugin Center. And we usually just go into one of the meeting rooms, one of the team meeting rooms, and do the interview. And he's carrying a game ball, and he has Ben Cotham with him, who's one of his top assistants. And just kind of the look on his face and sort of the satisfaction, but also sort of a look of, trying to process everything that's happened in the last not only half an hour, but the last 4 hours or so when you talk about the game, then just all the aftermath of it and all the fun and excitement. And one of the things that he said to me that really stood out in the post-game interview, he said, we got to a point where, okay, it's done. You kneel it down and it's over, and you walk out and, you shake hands and everything begins. He said, I wish I could have just hit pause in that moment right there and enjoyed that for longer than it lasted. Because that's really, he said, why I came here. This is why I came back to Vanderbilt, which is, a place he loves. He's a Nashville guy, went to NBA and played for the Commodores when Bobby Johnson was coach. He said, this is the reason I came back here. There's a lot of work to do. Our job's not done. This is a step along the way, but it is a really, really big step. And to see him get the national attention that he's received, and just doing a lot more national stuff over the last couple of days, and just the positive feelings for the program has been really cool.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome story, man. I mean, and obviously it was the lead in what was just an absolutely bonkers weekend of college football. So you love to see it. October's getting spicy. And, Kevin, we appreciate you making the time for us, getting up early and talking some Vandy football. And I'm glad you brought up the Vanderbilt basketball program earlier. These guys were making fun of me when I was talking about proud moments in Vanderbilt athletics. I was like, y'all don't know what it was like under Coach Stallings, man. Vandy had that thing rolling. They didn't know. They didn't know, Kevin. So,
there have been a lot of big moments in Vanderbilt basketball history, even going back to the 80s. I was in high school back then, and man, all these teams would come into Memorial and take their L and go home. I mean, that was when Memorial Magic was at its highest level. CM Newton was coach back then. There have been a lot of terrific Vanderbilt teams over the years, and they've knocked off some number one teams in basketball at Memorial Gym for sure. So there have been some good moments on campus, and hopefully some good moments to come with the basketball program with Mark Byington as head coach this year.
Vanderbilt, America's team.
America's team. That's right. I like it.
Well, Byington came from JMU, so you got a winner. Okay, he's the former JMU coach, so obviously anything is possible. Kevin, thank you for making the time, buddy. Always appreciate catching up. Thanks so much.
Anytime. Thanks so much, fellas. I enjoyed it.
There you go. That's our man, Kevin. Look, I'm here to educate you guys. All right, I'm here to educate you guys, Roddy. You're welcome.
Educated. Yeah,
you're welcome.
Thank you.
That was awesome. That was
I just
cool.
I take a little personal that you threw out Vanderbilt's great moments in basketball with their national championships in baseball. Like, what are we doing here?
They're the Vandy boys.
Vandy boys. That's correct. Oh. They are the Vandy boys. That was cool. I mean, look, we can go back to the rest of the Week 6, bloodbath if you would like, but when Alabama loses at Vanderbilt, that's like once in a generation type stuff. Like,
Lane Kiffin said it. Lane Kiffin stopped his press conference after when he's giving somebody asked him a question. He goes, "How many timeouts does Alabama have?" Oh man, sorry, I'm watching this. This is like once in a lifetime stuff, and he's right. He's right. Like Vanderbilt, you loved. I think there were a couple spectacles over the weekend that just like warm your heart for college sports, because we talk so much about transfer portals ruining this and NILs ruining it. Like freaking Vanderbilt, whose NIL budget is probably a quarter of Alabama's. Like, do you think that Vanderbilt roster is making a collective $5 million?
Probably not. Although Diego Pavia did tweet his agent's cell phone number over the weekend. Not sure if you caught that. He was like, "Holler at your boy for that NIL bag." Here's my agent's cell phone number.
That's a good agent.
I did not.
Tweeted a cell phone number.
But like, I think we're pretty sure that Alabama.
What is his number?
Roster at least $15 million. Like that roster is at least a $15 million roster, probably close to 20. And Vanderbilt was just able to beat him. Now, if they play that game as Hugh Freeze says, we played it 9 more times. Like Alabama wins 9 more times,
Auburn's
but it doesn't matter.
4. Yeah,
but it doesn't matter because you play the game once.
Yeah.
And the result that happens during that one time, as much of an anomaly as it might be in the grand scheme of things, this is not a super simulation where we do 10,000 games and we see how it comes out. This is a one-time deal, and it doesn't matter if you're Doctor Strange and you're. I just went through 14 billion different simulations. How many of those do we win in? 1. Doesn't matter. We found the one. It's all that matters in college athletics. So
that's
you
a
love
clip,
to see.
Hartzell.
Also them going to Cal. Like game day going to Cal was freaking awesome. It was awesome. It was an awesome spectacle. Everybody there was high as hell. The signs were amazing.
Including Pat
The signs were high-level signs
including
down
Pat
there.
McAfee. That dude was
like apparently Marshawn
bombed out
Lynch
of his
brought them a
gourd.
package that Pat McAfee referred to a number of different times, just blatantly talking about weed on college game day without saying the only thing he didn't say was say marijuana or weed.
They don't test college athletes anymore for marijuana.
No, they don't.
That's a big deal. I think
It's probably
that's
honestly, you want to
long
go back
overdue,
to Florida State
frankly.
struggles. It might be part of it. I'm just saying.
Okay,
You know,
well, very.
that's a reckless assertion. That is reckless by me.
I love
Take
it.
that back.
I love
take
it.
that
That's
back.
amazing. I am curious though, Roddy. Like we talked about the Vanderbilt side of this, and thanks again to Kevin Ingram for joining us. But like, where does Alabama go after this, man? Because you look at these SEC standings, dude. Georgia's got a loss. Ole Miss has got a loss. Now Alabama has a loss. Tennessee's got a loss. Like this is, and look, I joke about feeding at the trough because I just love getting you like razzled about this stuff. But SEC standings, pretty damn interesting, man. Like where does Alabama go from this?
Alabama's going to be fine. Like
Define fine.
what you thought of
right.
What you thought of Alabama after the Georgia game is closer to what Alabama actually is than what you think about Alabama after this game.
Okay, so does that just real quick? Are they a top tier team in college football? Like top
Absolutely.
3 team?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, top 3 is like I can.
If
They're
we're doing
like,
tiers, Felder asked me for my tier last week, okay? And I know you listen to Felder Fridays, so maybe you remember
I did not
this.
listen last week, but
I had
but I usually do.
Texas, Alabama, and Ohio State. Georgia was 4th, and the only reason Georgia was 4th was because they lost head-to-head to Alabama. Like,
yeah, I think you lump. I think I'm willing to like extend the top tier to like 6. Like that, I think is the top tier because all of these teams, as we see, have flaws. You made a good point about are there things that Vanderbilt did that people can use against Alabama going forward? My answer generally is no. Like there's not a lot that's transferable because you don't just need the plays, you need the package. Like you need the threat of this on every single play and the willingness in any situation to pull some of this stuff out. And you need the creativity and the placement. Like could Alabama see some of the plays that Vanderbilt ran in the future? Yes. And I think if people go back and they watch the Stanford film against Clemson, there are really creative things being done by smaller school teams with quarterbacks with some skill sets in situations that you would not see otherwise. Stanford doesn't run a lot of speed option. They came out speed option on 3rd and longs against Clemson. Clemson's in their exotic package. Boom, you get hit on an option. And the thing that, as an option guy, the thing that the option always made you do is be option sound on both sides. You had to have somebody for the dive, somebody for the quarterback, somebody for the pitch. Now, for the most part, people don't do the dive part anymore. But what Vanderbilt made Alabama do on that numerous times is make sure that you have somebody for the quarterback and somebody for the pitch, and then they threw in the shovel part of it too. So if the defensive end takes the shovel, now you've got 2-on-1 on the outside with quarterback and the pitch. That essentially becomes your dive. So Vanderbilt incorporated some of that stuff. South Carolina could do it with Lenore Sellers. Like they could. If it's not already in, it's hard to master. You got to live that life, dude. Like you got to live that life of the quarterback making quick decisions and being able to execute and being able to stare down the barrel of a hit and dish the ball. Tennessee ain't going to do it. It's not going to be a part of what Tennessee. They may throw in a speed option. but it's not going to be a part of what they do. Missouri, LSU, not going to do it. Oklahoma could, depends on if Michael Hawkins still the quarterback. They could throw in some of that stuff. Auburn, not going to do it. Like, so zone read is about as much as you're going to see going forward. Maybe a little bit of that speed option, maybe the shovel, but I doubt you get the shovel with the pitch. It's just something that you have to practice so much that it's not even worth putting in your offense. So no, I don't think people are going to take the Vanderbilt film, splice it up, and say, hey, look, here's our game plan against Alabama. They may take a couple plays. Hey, we get in a third and medium situation, plus territory. We're probably going to go for it on fourth down. Let's see if we can pop an option. They may put that in, but I don't think what they're going to do is transferable in the same way that, like, so for instance, this is not a correction because you're right on characterizing what Vanderbilt did sort of as service academy ball. But if you watch the service academies, they ain't doing this stuff no more. Right. Especially Army.
Yeah, they're throwing it.
Well, not only that, but like Army's probably run 10 triple options the last 2 seasons. They don't do it anymore. They don't get the talent at the slot positions to be able to dish it. So what do? It's double option. It's quarterback B-back game all day with Army. Navy does a little bit more of it, but they've incorporated a lot more of the throw game. There's a lot more run and shoot in there, like what Niamano is doing at San Jose State.
Yeah.
Like these things have had to evolve because the rules have changed, and they took their lumps last year, but Army and Navy are really good this year because of their ability to execute at a high level efficiently in the throw game, but also like they've sort of figured out how to live in this world where you can't cut. So like this is more like Jamie Chadwell, Coastal Carolina vibes to me than Service Academy, but only because of what the Service Academies have evolved into.
No, that's well said. I mean, I'm asking because I want to. There's no better person to educate our audience on how and sort of just kind of explaining, to lay people what Vanderbilt was able to do. But
yeah, it was awesome.
If regardless of what happens the rest of the way, like good luck finding a story that tops Nashville.
No, there won't be. There won't be.
I hope there's other crazy weekends. I hope there's other crazy results. That's at the top of the pile, man.
But like the history, you have to account for the history of what those two programs have been and the history with each other. Like Vanderbilt hadn't beaten Alabama since what, the 80s?
Yes.
Look, like, is there another story out there that's going to be like that? I don't think so. Northern Illinois
I got my Blitz card right here. I'm gonna frame it.
Frame it. You should. Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame, and it is like so far down the ledger from this that it seemed more improbable that Vandy would beat Alabama than Northern Illinois would beat Notre Dame. So
where are the goalposts now? Like
the fire department
took them back, or
no? The fire department took them out of the river and they got chopped up. I think they're being sold. Like pieces of it are being sold.
You want like a necklace? Doctor, you want, or maybe like an
no? I was just thinking like that would be a perfect thing if you wanted to open a bar in Nashville and just have like the goalpost. Maybe you could turn it upside down. You walk right through it every time you go in the door. They're just missing an opportunity.
I think the whole goalpost would go for like $100,000. Like they're chopping these things up and selling it for like
the
$1,000
fine from the SEC is $250,000, right?
No, that was Arkansas because Arkansas is a second-time offender.
Oh, they're a repeat offender.
It's which the last time they did it was basketball. So I don't know what the statute, like when does this thing roll over? Maybe it's a calendar year. I don't know. But Arkansas has got to pay $250,000 to Tennessee, and Vanderbilt's got to pay $100,000 to Alabama. So Alabama comes out of this richer, honestly.
Yeah, well, when you put it that way. Yeah, that was it. Vanderbilt had lost 23 straight, and the last 3 by a combined 148-3. Like Bama had just been bossing these guys. So I think it's an awesome story, obviously, and it's cool to kind of take a deep dive on.
Is there anything to the like Saban would never / this is part of the Kalen DeBoer experience?
I don't want to overreact. Like you said, you're like, Bama's going to be fine. Yeah, okay. Like I tend to believe that too. Let's see. Let's see. Because look, we said this in the summer. If Bama goes 8-4 this year, people are going to be like, who is this guy? What are we doing? I don't think Bama's going to go 8-4.
No.
But don't let one loss pile up and turn into 2 or 3 or 4. Don't go the UNC route. Don't go the Auburn route.
The UNC Auburn route.
I'm just saying, like, UNC lost a game. I mean, JMU came and hung 70, and then since then they've lost 3 straight. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough scene.
I'm trying to find this stat. I think
who's coming to town this weekend, don't you, Roddy? I know you know who's
Lord.
coming to town this weekend. Jackets.
Yeah, the Jackets are coming to town this weekend. Sorry, I'm trying to find this stat that I saw. Okay. Chris Vanini wrote an article on The Athletic that sort of details kind of what happened, puts it in context, all this stuff. Saban won 123-4 against unranked teams, 100 wins in a row at one point. Texas A&M was one of those teams. Never happened to Vanderbilt, all this stuff. But the Kalen DeBoer thing, okay? Kalen DeBoer has not been a head coach for that long. He's been very successful, but he's not been a head coach for that long.
10 years, right? Give or take, something like that.
Yeah, if you count Sioux Falls, but at like a high level, like it's even less than that. In 2022, Kalen DeBoer's Washington team lost to an Arizona State team that finished 3-9. That was a Washington team that finished 11-2.
It's tough to play in the desert. Everybody knows that.
Okay, dude, I'm tired of you saying that. I went to the desert and it's not.
And you struggled, Roddy. You're like, I'm dying here. It's really hot.
Yeah. It was hot, but I don't have to play. And the bad football on the other side.
Please continue, please.
That team also needed a fourth down conversion to beat a Washington State team that was 5-7. Kalen DeBoer's last Fresno State team went 10-3, but lost to a 500 Hawaii team and lost to New Mexico and Nevada the year before.
Both
for whatever reason, what is it with you in the desert? Like these teams stink. Apparently, a lot of teams have success in the desert, but anytime someone loses, it's the desert. Yeah, the 3-9. 3-9 is what happened to that team.
That was Herm Edwards, man. I mean, Devil's Digest, huh?
You didn't even know that game was at Arizona State. Was it at Arizona State?
I do, because I am the network manager for the Washington Huskies radio network. Okay, I remember that game vividly.
Right. What I'm saying is that if you put it all into like a grand scheme of context, like the teams have had letdowns in a way that Saban's teams never did. And here's the thing that I want to get out of the Saban DeBoer comparison, but Alabama fans, but this is why I'm saying it. Right. Alabama fans have lived in a world where they have not had to worry about this stuff. And now you have a guy who's a really, really good head coach. He's just not the greatest head coach of all time. And so you will be mortal. You will lose to teams that are unranked more regularly than you did under Saban. Why do I feel confident saying that? Because the dude's the GOAT. He lost 4 in 17 years or whatever. It will happen more often than it did. And this guy who you just got has already had it happen to him more than Saban did, and in more embarrassing ways than Saban did. You will be fine in the grand scheme of things. 12-team playoffs, very good for you, Alabama, because like you'll make the playoff more often than not.
Right.
But now you're having to grapple with the mortality that everybody else in college football has felt. So, welcome.
Are you worried? That's very well said, Roddy. Very well said. Are you worried about Tennessee?
Yes.
Are you okay?
So okay. Let me from last weekend. Here are the teams that I feel like are a bit fraudulent and you should worry about. Like Michigan's done.
They're done.
Discard them. They are done. I don't want to see them
like
in the college
8-4 done. Like they're not.
Yeah. Well, look, we were talking college football playoff before.
Yes.
Yeah. They're not cooked, but they're done. So they need to find a quarterback. They're playing with Jack Tuttle. You're going to go out in the portal and try and find a quarterback, and they'll probably be able to pay for one. You'll probably pay enough where you'll get a upper mid-tier college quarterback.
Don't say it.
You get a Brock Glenn. You get a Luke Croman.
I'll bring Brock's name into this.
But like the thing that Michigan needs to be careful of is ending up with a DJ Uiagalelei when they can't get a Cam Ward. Like that can't happen for you, Michigan. So I actually think Michigan probably goes out and tries to find like a Will Howard, which, to be honest with you, has gotten Ohio State to a point where they're a very good team, but it's left Ohio State with some very clear deficiencies in their downfield passing game that, despite having Jeremiah Smith, might come back to bite them at some point. But their floor is a lot lower than like what you would get if you went with someone else.
Yeah.
So like if you look at last year's transfer portal class, if this year's is like it, like it's if you don't hit the home run, you just go for the safe bet. You don't want to go for the mid-tier, I can fix him. Like, you don't want to go for that if you're Michigan. But we'll see. Missouri, done. Get out of here, Missouri. Stop talking to me. Like, they finally got bit by a team that they were playing with fire with Boston College. We're playing with fire with Vanderbilt. They finally got bit by A&M. Auburn's going to beat them, and that's in Como. Alabama's going to beat them. Oklahoma's probably going to beat them.
I'm not comfortable.
You think Auburn beats them?
Going to beat Missouri. I'm not comfortable with that.
Okay,
so
that's fine.
Missouri's got the easiest schedule in the SEC.
They're going to lose 5 games for the rest of the year.
I don't see that. I'm just
for the rest of the year.
I don't see that. There's still a path for 10-2, 9-3 Missouri.
You got to watch out for Auburn, Alabama. Oklahoma's defense is going to give them fits. South Carolina is dangerous, and Arkansas is good all of a sudden. So, like, let's pump the brakes.
Arkansas's been good. They've just been nipped at the buzzer by a couple of teams by like a handful of points. Regardless, Tennessee's on this list. Get to Tennessee.
Let's pump the brakes. Tennessee, on the other hand, like the now everyone sees the offense for what it is, which is deficient. It's not. We're not going back to the Hendon Hooker days, especially if Squirrel White misses any time. And I don't know what his prognosis. I don't know what his diagnosis is. I don't think they lose to Florida this week, but you've got Alabama later on. Kentucky's very good. You've got Georgia and Athens, and then a dangerous Vanderbilt team. Is there still a path for Tennessee to be in the college ball playoff? Yes. Would you bet on it? I don't think so, because I don't think they're as good as Alabama. I know they're not as good as Georgia. That puts you at 3, and then who's your best win? It would be probably Oklahoma and Norman at that point, which could end up being a very good win, could get you in a college ball playoff, but I wouldn't feel great about that. And honestly, I don't feel great about them against Kentucky. I don't. So, like, I think Tennessee is – I think we can put them on the shelf for now. You can put them in a place where, like, you know, they are a starter that you have just mixed to see if it's dead, and you stick it in the thing in the glass container, you put it on the shelf, and you see if it's going to rise. And if it rises, cool, we can use it to make sourdough. And if it doesn't rise, you discard it. Like, that's where we're at with Tennessee. You're putting them on the shelf to see if they rise.
Go ahead, doctor. Get in here, man. Get in here.
I love a good sourdough. Yeah, I'm gonna. I mean, we'll talk about. I've still got Tennessee on the stock report, but I'm not completely out on these guys yet. But very, very disappointed. Not just in Tennessee. I'm really, just disappointed that I'm having to listen to you guys kind of, be right about what you were trying to tell me for a few weeks, and I'll just sit here and take it. But
there's no shame in it.
I still think there's a ceiling there for Tennessee. Like, I still think
the ceiling. You think?
I still think Tennessee. Let's hold on. Let's take a look at what happens this next week, because Florida, I think it's a 16-point spread, but Florida's been playing better. Go ahead, Hard. Go ahead. You're about to pop out of your pants there.
I think somebody needs to be careful. I think people need to be careful. That is all I'm saying. Folks might need to be. I didn't think we were going to say this 4 weeks ago. Tennessee fans might need to be careful Saturday. Graham Mertz
been he's been pretty good.
By the way, are you baking your own bread in the Jones household? Is that a thing y'all do?
Not during the season, but during the off season, yeah, we'll bake our own bread. Dude, I ain't got time to be baking bread in the off season.
It's not a quick process.
Well, it's just an intent. Like, you got to go and you got to knead it a couple of times, and you got to split it, and then you got to let it rise. It's a day long process, and I don't have a day to dedicate to tending to this bread. Like, I can't be babysitting this bread. I'm sorry, bread. I can't be babysitting you during the year.
Sorry, Tennessee. I can't be babysitting you, man. You either need to rise, get it together, or you're going in the trash.
Exactly. You're being discarded. We'll use you in pancakes. How about that? It's a far cry from being used in a beautiful sourdough. The Tennessee-Alabama game, though, is super interesting to me.
In Knoxville,
going
a couple weeks.
2
weeks, right?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yep. Week after next. Because I expect Alabama to get right, and I expect Tennessee to get right. But this game, the losing team of that game is going to hit the button. They're gonna hit the button of panic, of abject, like, not blow it all up, unless it's Alabama. They might hit that button or try to, but like, they're gonna hit the button of panic, because you're gonna be sitting there with 2 losses, and you're gonna be staring down the barrel of we have to be perfect in every aspect of the game going
Thank
forward.
you, Denzel. Yes, very nice.
And I don't think that team's going to do it.
By the way, you know that Remember the Titans was filmed at my high school, right?
Yes, I did. Druid Hills.
I just shout out to Druid
Come
Hills
on,
High
bro.
School. Just putting that
I
out
didn't
there.
even know that was a.
I'm counting true. Like I'm not new to it. I'm true to it.
I'll take
Everybody
I'll
knows
take
that.
it a step further. I stole a football from the set. They had these
Adams
really
Stadium.
nice Nike tack footballs.
Yeah.
Whoop.
Druid Hills High School.
Sounds
Come
about
on,
right.
man.
Whoop.
You know they went up to Berry College for the Gettysburg scene. Did you know that?
I did know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course you did, because you're true to it, not new to it. We already know. Kids these days, they don't know. They don't know about Denzel.
They don't know. They don't know about that, and they don't know about Vanderbilt basketball history.
No. I'm not a kid. I am very much not a kid, and I don't know about Vanderbilt basketball history. But
Now you do.
a couple other things I want to get to today. A couple other things. You mentioned Army Navy. I want to give a shout out to Army and Navy, both 5-0.
Feels
Shouts
like
out.
1945, doesn't it? Doesn't it?
I mean, no, they have black people playing for them, so no, it does not feel like 1945.
No, thank you. You're right. You're not wrong. But here's the thing: like Navy's not just like eking these games out.
No,
like,
Navy's
they're
dominating.
demoralizing people. It's pretty fun to watch.
I think we need to start reconciling with the fact that we could be in a situation where Army and Navy play for the American Conference Championship game, then the next week play Army Navy, and then the next week one of them could play in the college football playoff.
Well, explain this to our audience, because Felder and I tried to workshop this last week. The Army-Navy game in December in Washington, D.C. this year is not a conference game.
Correct. Does not count towards the conference because
Right.
it's played after the conference championship game, nor does it count towards the college football playoff. So if Army and Navy meet in the conference championship game, or if one of them is in the conference championship game, and they win, and they are the highest ranked group of 5 team, they will be in the college football playoff. That next week, they will play Army Navy, the standalone game. Whether they win or lose, it does not matter. They will still play in the college football playoff if they are named to the college football playoff. The college football playoff is not going to wait.
Because the playoff field has to be set Monday
Sunday
after
after
conference.
championship.
Sunday, yes, thank you. Sunday after conference
So
championship games.
Army Navy is the most important exhibition game in this. It means nothing to anybody other than Army, Navy, and the spectacle of the sport. It's an exhibition game.
And look who's standing in our way. The common denominator that both teams have to play between now and the end of November.
Who's that?
Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah. Notre Dame. Yeah,
And neither of those games, I have to double check the schedule. One of those games is in the Bronx, and I think the other game is in like Baltimore or Philly. Like none of those games are on campus.
They play Army at Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
in
Navy is
the
at
Bronx,
MetLife. Navy's
and
at
Navy's
MetLife.
at MetLife. Okay, there you go.
So look, we don't talk a ton of Notre Dame football on the show, but the Irish are sitting there and they could wreck this thing for us.
Yeah, don't do it.
Or Navy and Army could wreck them, which would be awesome.
Yeah, we've been talking about Notre Dame's ACC schedule. Maybe we should be talking about them versus Army and Navy. The other one that was real disappointing to me over the weekend was USC. I don't know why I'm disappointed in USC anymore. Like I should not have great expectations, but you're right. It was kind of a whole repeat of what happened in Ann Arbor. The interesting thing about USC, and I listened most of the times to the Wednesday show, and Wayne has sort of downplayed like, oh, going to the Big Ten, and I get why he does that. And UCLA played well in Happy Valley, like
Yes.
they put up a fight. UCLA getting better. I was really impressed by UCLA's physicality, and I don't know if that was something that's been every week. I haven't watched UCLA every week. Sorry, Wayne, but UCLA was physical against Penn State, and so I've been down on Deshaun Foster, but after seeing that, I'm like, okay, I'm not quite as down on him because at least his team's playing hard and physical. But the thing is, like, there's a way that Big Ten teams pull you into the muck.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nobody does it better than Minnesota, I feel like. Like, Minnesota just Iowa does it better than Minnesota. But everybody, you just get drug into the muck. And how often can you get drug into the muck? There's a muck of a football game. The games are slow. Sometimes the players are slow, and yet you can't run by him. You're like, that guy's slow. And then you run as fast as you can, and he's running with you. You're like, why is he running with me? He's slow. Like, there's just a weird thing that happens. Big Ten football. It's almost like playing in black and white. Big Ten West, and it's not even cold yet. So
Well,
USC's in the middle of it. Like they're in the middle of their stretch.
You mentioned the Tennessee-Bama game in 2 weeks and the loser hitting the button. USC, last 11 regular season games. You know what their record is?
Oh, I did see this somewhere. It's like 7-5 or 6-5 would be 11 games.
Lower.
Is it really?
Lower.
What is it?
They're 4-7 in their last 11 regular season games.
Yeah, dang.
And they closed last year 1-5. Okay, so I mean we're juking the stats here, but you know you're 3-2 and you have been physically just kind of compromised against Michigan and Minnesota. Now you could say, well, we're a play or two away from beating Michigan at the Big House if we get the defensive stop. And while that argument is true, you didn't get the defensive stop and you lost. And
while that argument is true, not only did you not get the defensive stop, a guy physically dominated your defense on the way to a massive run when Michigan couldn't throw the ball. Like
that too. That
wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, so now you got Penn State coming to town Saturday, and you know, again, I mentioned how I was offended at Penn State at 4 in the AP poll.
Fair.
What is the line in that? And it's a 3-point spread. Is Penn State favored in that game, Doc, or do I have that the other way around? Either way, I need to see it to believe it for Penn State.
Yeah, that's fair.
I need to see it to believe it.
Well, you're not going to see it this week.
Well, you beat West Virginia, and by the way, West Virginia right now, you were talking Big 12 earlier, Roddy. That they are the Undertaker popping up out of the coffin. Okay, that's the GIF. They're alive. They have somehow reinvented themselves after some early season tough losses to Pitt and Penn State, both of which I should add are non-conference losses. They got Iowa State coming to town Saturday. Big 12 is a fascinating.
Have you seen the top of the Big 12?
Dude, I'm all in.
It's awesome.
It's the best conference in America in terms of
interest.
The interest level, yeah, the drama, yeah, like what?
Like you can
what's
discard.
Gonna happen?
You can discard Houston, who actually is not
unless
all the
you're
way out.
TCU, of course. Which shout out to the Doc who laid 17 with TCU last.
Discard, week. Yeah, and you led me to that too. I'm upset about that. You can discard Houston. You can discard TCU. You can discard Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Kansas. That leaves what 11 teams that are not discarded yet. We're close to discarding Arizona State because of who they've been. We're close to discarding UCF because, come on, UCF, what are we doing here? Well, you just got your tails kicked by.
It's tough to come down to the
Colorado,
swamp, dude. It ain't easy.
Ago.
You got merged. You got merged.
They went to the swamp and got merged.
You can steal that I'll let you use that, Roddy.
Yeah, probably won't, but thank you. But like Texas Tech, BYU, Iowa State, Colorado.
Here we are.
West Virginia, Kansas State, Arizona, and Utah, I think, are all alive in this thing.
Utah ain't alive, man. They're not alive.
They've got one loss in the conference.
Yeah, but Cam Rising's 26. The guy needs to get a job.
Yeah, I did hear you say that. That was kind of rude.
Was it? Was it rude? The guy's just out here stealing room and board from people. Like,
and NIL money.
It's time to enter the workforce, son.
Is this contract
Van Wilder
have a minimum playing time like clause in it? It needs one.
That's a good question. You've got let's play spoiler here. You've got Colorado, Kansas State this weekend in Boulder. You're going back to the mountains.
Yep.
That's going to be an awesome football game because I think Kansas State on the surface is going to be able to do what I thought UCF was going to do a couple weeks ago, which is just run it down Colorado's throat. However, something really weird has happened the last month in Boulder, which is that Colorado's improving. Lines of scrimmage are getting better. Like, they're stopping the run. Shadur is Shadur. I mean, that guy's a monster. Travis Hunter's a freak. Like, and I say that in a loving, affectionate way. Like, he is maybe the best player in college football. But Colorado, I feel like, is a lot better than everybody thought they were going to be, myself included. I will acknowledge I was wrong on this. I thought they were going to head way south after the Nebraska loss. Since then, they've handled their business. They're 4-1.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for them defensively that they've been able to do is they've started creating negative plays. They had 13 tackles for loss against UCF, and UCF actually creased them a decent amount in the run game, created some big plays, but they didn't go for touchdowns. And then Colorado would turn around with a negative play, and when UCF was behind the chains, they couldn't get back. And then they created turnovers. Like, there were 4 turnovers in the game. 3 of them happened when the game was kind of already going Colorado's way, mainly because they were creating negative plays. So anytime UCF had anything going, or on first or second downs is the first 2 plays of the series, Colorado creates a negative play and UCF had no answer to get back because KJ Jefferson can't throw the ball. So I think a similar game plan or a similar success rate in terms of negative plays would certainly help Colorado do the same thing, because I think there's questions about Avery Johnson's consistency throwing the football. He's an electric player, but he's not a natural passer. So the thing that it's different this week is Kansas State's offensive line is one of the best in the country at not allowing negative plays. So that's going to be a fascinating dynamic to me. And either way, I think I have not gotten into the defensive film from the Oklahoma State game for Kansas State, so I can't say this definitively. But I think there's going to be some opportunities for Colorado. Oklahoma State passed for a lot of yards against that Kansas State defense. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
I can give you the Cliff Notes version of the Kansas State-Oklahoma State game.
I mean, I watched the game. Like, I haven't gone through the film. But, yes, please.
I mean, K-State just put the hammer. I mean, literally just –
That's your assessment? That doesn't help me.
They scored 5 straight drives in the second half. They just wouldn't let up. I mean, Oklahoma State's done. They are cooked. They are cooked.
They're cooked
to a crisp, man. That's like you put the garlic bread on broil for like 90 seconds because you wanted it to get crispy, and then you forgot it was in there, and you came back 5 minutes later, and it's black. It's just straight carbon.
Yes.
That's Oklahoma State right now.
Yeah.
Those guys
should
crisp.
Kirk Morrison threw this out during the game. It is a good
That's happened to me very recently, by the way.
I'm sorry. It's the worst because then the smell lingers too.
Dude,
and then
I got in so much trouble at home.
You're like, man, should I go out and get some more garlic bread? But for you, that's like a 30-minute drive. You got to hitch up the wagon, go into town.
It's so funny.
Get the garlic bread.
You got a
some way to watch the
5
chickens.
minutes away, man. Go to the Lion.
Oh, go to the Lion. Okay. Dude, you know you're in the country when you got an Ingles and a Food Lion down the street.
Nobody said anything about Ingles, okay? Nobody said anything. We don't have a Piggly Wiggly down the street, okay? We got a Food Lion.
Hey, Ingles is nice. I'm not disparaging Ingles. I love Ingles.
We got a Publix. It's just like, it's like 5 extra minutes. Sometimes you can just go up to the Shitty Kitty and get what you need there at the Lion instead of going to Publix. No, I don't need help with my bags, sir. I can be good. Sometimes they're just too nice at Publix.
They are very nice.
It offends me.
Yeah, it's fair. What were we talking about?
Kansas State.
Yes, Kansas State.
That's a late game for you, by the way.
Yes, it is.
10:15 Eastern kick.
Yeah, but going back out to Boulder, last time I hiked a couple of times. I'm going to do that again. A little bit chillier this time. I also have routes planned. So last time I went on like a really easy hike to kind of get my bearings. Then I went on like a slightly harder hike. But to get to the top of the mountain on the slightly harder hike, I can start on the place where I did the easy hike, but it's a harder hike on the way up. So I think I'm going to do that one.
What's
it's like
your
a 3-hour hike.
What's your hiking shoe game?
Great question.
Like?
I went in like my regular like running shoes last time.
Bad decision.
I bought some hiking boots. Hiking boots.
They come up a little bit. Like
should arrive today. They are high tops. They are high top. They're hiking boots, dude. So I'm gonna wear the cheap Amazon kind.
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Pro tip:
great reviews though.
You probably want to wear those around the house for a little bit before you put them on to hike on a mountain. You need to break them in a little bit.
I'll go on a couple walks with them. Like we'll be fine.
Yeah, that too.
We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
That too. That's awesome.
So your boy's gonna hit some tops of mountains. If I am not on the call on Saturday night for whatever reason, it means I got by a mountain lion or something like that.
By the way, are you able to disclose what happened to Dave Fleming on Saturday night? Why did Reese Davis have to chip in? That man had no voice for the Miami Cal game. He shouldn't have been in there. That wasn't nice.
I think the announcement was that it was a personal matter. I know what the personal matter was, but I'm not going to go any further.
Don't disclose it. Okay, that's fine. But I mean, Reese, bless his heart,
just
man.
Text
like
me.
the guy was like, his voice was hanging on by a thread.
Yeah. He was a trooper, man. He was a trooper. It was a late switch. I know the producer of that show really well. We talked on like Wednesday night or Thursday, and the switch had not been made. So I don't know when exactly the switch was made, but it was a late switch, and that restarted that trek on game day that morning. Like, I don't even know what time he has to show up for game day, but he's got to show up in time to get makeup and hair done and all that stuff. And then he goes through game day, and then he's got to watch some of the games to just be up on it at night when you're doing it. Cause you talk about, thing about that night game is you talk about the day as well. Like, it comes up, you're reacting. as your game because you're the only game still on, maybe one of 3.
Real tough gig. I mean, sitting around being fed, watching college football,
Lord,
in a climate-controlled environment. Like,
well, that's not the tough part of the gig. The tough part of the gig is then being on at 10:30 Eastern time. Like Reese lives in Florida.
sir, can I interest you in a Celsius? Like, are you?
I mean, how many Celsius do you need?
Would you like to meet
You
my
need
friend?
I'll tell you.
Code Red.
You need multiple. You need multiple Celsius. I've done this game. I did this game earlier this year, and it's hard. Steven?
What's your pre-game hydration plan, or in-game hydration plan for that matter? How do you get down?
So
I know you don't drink Monster Energy. I know you're not. Like
no, I
a
drink
Red Bull guy.
Celsius.
You
I
are
do a
Celsius
Celsius. Start going like 20 minutes before the game.
You
Usually
a
I'm
sipper
about-
or you chug? You like take little.
Well, I would. So our crew gets the sparkling versions.
Uh-huh.
If it was the still version, it'd go down quicker. And they've asked me if I wanted the still version. I said no, it's fine. I can.
You know they have
we
the
can sparkle.
packets that you can drop in water. Are you
Yeah, they're
familiar
not
with
as
that?
good. They're not as
into
good. Yeah,
it.
I'm very
Okay.
familiar. I have those here at home in
Okay.
case I need them. But I try not to drink. I drink coffee in the morning, and then I try not to consume caffeine for the rest of the day while I'm at home, no matter how tired I am, so that on the weekends, when I do go into intense caffeine consumption, it hits. And so usually that thing hits right around the open, takes me through the first quarter, adrenaline takes me through the second.
Yeah, it does.
But the late games, sometimes I got to crack open a second Celsius and get like halfway through that thing
Yeah.
at halftime.
Leave like a
Just
little floater. I do that too on the Blitz, and then I'll leave my half-drank Celsius in my office, and I'll come in Monday morning and just kind of finish it.
That's gross.
It's
It's
not
gross.
gross. It's actually not
That's
gross.
gross.
It's
It's been
delicious.
sitting there for. Why would you do that?
Because I'm built different.
We've got
Doc.
free Celsius in our office.
I
Just
would
go
like
grab
more
another
free
one.
Celsius. If anybody out there is listening, College Sports Now, powered by Celsius, has a nice ring to it. Okay,
Yes, it
we
does.
welcome.
I've had some
Roddy-
weird experiences on Celsius, man. It messes with my vision, I think.
Really?
I don't know if I
That
can.
was- that was
I don't
me
know
with
if I
Four
can do
Loko.
the Four
Hot
Loco.
Doctor.
I've had enough of
Not
that
built
too.
different.
It might just be, after
Hey,
effects from the Four
listen.
Loco 20 years ago.
Not everybody's got that dog in them. Okay, not everybody's got that dog in them. All right, we got to
Steve used
do.
to crush them for Loco. Hold on, I
gotta
got one more
do-
thing. One more
Come on,
thing I
come on.
want to get
We got
to before.
we got Stock
I know you
Report and
gotta go.
Rodstradamus
Yeah,
is
I'm
coming off a
sorry.
losing week.
Yeah, jeez. Undefeated teams. So right now there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 undefeated teams in the top 25, and then there's a couple more when you get to Army, Navy, and some others. How many undefeated teams do you think we finish with at the end of this thing? At the end of the
Zero.
regular season.
Zero.
Season. You don't think
Zero.
anybody finishes undefeated? Okay.
No, I don't.
That's fair.
What do you have?
I think it's probably one. I think it's one of Texas or the winner of Ohio State, Oregon.
I think Texas loses this weekend, man.
I think that's well within the realm of Oklahoma has won 6 of the last 7, 5 of the last 6, including the Big 12 championship game in 2018 or whatever it was. Like, yeah, I don't think that's outside of the.
Sucks that game's not at noon, by the way.
Possibility.
I don't love that.
Does it suck?
I think so. It sucks
Okay.
for me. It's leaving its traditional spot. I understand why it's moving, okay, Disney, but I wish it wasn't a 3-3
Yeah,
pick.
I asked somebody that lives in Dallas how they feel about it. Somebody who's very familiar with the game, works for ESPN. I think the general sentiment around that game amongst the people that are there and in Dallas and going to the game is like, as long as it's held around the state fair, no one cares.
Sure.
Which is interesting to me because I too was like, man, that's a noon game. Like the game's always at noon. Why is
It's
it not
just
at
a
noon?
noon game. It's a noon game that would crank things up to like 11
Real
right
quick.
out of the chute.
Yeah, that's true.
And for me, the 3:30 slate, it's busy, man. There's a lot going on, and I liked it in that
Yeah.
featured spot.
That's fair.
There. But
I
call
am
me
like
old-fashioned, Roddy. I mean, I am an
no.
old man,
This is the first time it's not been at noon in how long? Like I don't know, but I understand why it is. The thing about that 3:30 slot though is what's the game before it? Because the thing about the
noon
3:30,
ABC game.
yeah, is they're going to have to make a decision if that game is a good game and goes along. So I would imagine that it's South Carolina at Alabama.
Ugh.
I would imagine that the actual kick time of Texas Oklahoma is going to be closer to 3:45.
Yeah,
Like
good
that's my
point.
guess.
Yeah.
That they will come on do a big if the game in front of them ends on time, they'll come on, do a big open, sort of a whole lead up, run up deal, maybe even some studio before, toss it up to the booth, come back down. Like they'll do that whole run up thing just to give themselves some buffer.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you've noticed, dude, but ESPN has started to make very conscious decisions to dump out of games that are blowouts and go to the next game to move that one. Because usually, peek behind the curtain, for when you've got a game in front of you, your start time is sometimes fluid. Like they'll say, hey, look, kick time's at 7:05 with a 5-minute slide or a 10-minute slide, which means at some point you could determine, hey, look, we're going to slide this thing 10 minutes back. You got to notify the teams, and they don't love it, but it happens. But if that game is still going on, you start on a different network. Like, hey, we're starting on ESPN News. Hey, we're starting on ESPNU, and then we'll flip over whenever it happens. Nobody likes that as the game that's coming on.
Yep.
ESPN in the past has just stuck with the game that's on and then switch when that game is over. But now they're making the decision to games out of hand. We're moving you.
Right.
We tell that, like, studio comes on, hey, you guys are moving to ESPNU, and then we're going to the next game. If South Carolina, Alabama is like a 10-point game in the fourth quarter, and you got to start Texas, Oklahoma, it's a fascinating decision that has to be made. Not a blowout, but you got to move on. Ooh, that's just inside baseball.
That's a good point. No, I mean, your game is listed to start at 10:15 in Boulder. That game ain't starting at 10:15. Ain't no way.
It'll start at 10:15. It may start at 10:20. Like our kick is probably 10:20. It may kick at 10:25.
I bet
but
you
with Florida, Tennessee ahead of us.
I bet you a can of Celsius right now that your game will kick at 10:30 Eastern time.
It won't kick at that. No way. That's not how it works. We won't be on now. If you want to make a bet on when we'll be on ESPN, that's the interesting thing. It will kick sometime around 10:25, 10:27. Like it will not make it to 10:30 without a kick.
Okay,
that has to be scheduled. And they hate the on campus people hate late kicks. Coaches too. You got to stay on schedule.
Yeah. I agree. You'd rather be first game out of the chute, man. At least you got a hard start. Let's come back to the how many undefeated teams discussion.
Yeah, that's all I kind of wanted to do.
That's something that we're going to get into on a weekly basis, and I have a feeling Wayne Cook is going to start.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because one of the undefeateds is going to go away this week because Ohio State and Oregon play each other.
Correct.
So that's gonna and you look at Indiana and who they play and like there's just so many ways that we're not going to end up with very many, which makes the college football playoff really interesting to me because if you trickle that down, like the number of 2-loss teams is going to grow and the number of 3-loss teams is going to grow, and so I don't think it's going to be very clear. But that's why I wanted to get into it.
Yeah, I heard you on ACC today with Wes talking about the folks in that room are going to have to earn it, and they are. Because it's going to be very difficult to differentiate a bunch of 1- and 2-loss teams when they're all lined up against each other, especially when one of those teams, Bama, has a road loss at Vanderbilt. Okay, Stock Doctor, hit me with some stock tips, man, because we still got Rodstradamus before we got to get out of here. So are you buying
you're
or selling
telling me to
Tennessee?
Rush it? Is that what you're doing?
Well,
just telling me to go fast?
Can I get
Here's the
first version?
Here's the first buy would be Jocko Go. I don't know if you've heard of those. Harris Teeter runs them on sale 2 for $4. I like them better than Celsius, but that all changes if Celsius does decide to sponsor the show.
Why don't you bring one of those to the studio on Saturday? Let me wet my beak a little bit.
Done.
Go. Okay.
Done.
All right.
Will do. Last week, basically like every other week I've done this, I gave you just a solid gold buy in Navy. No sweat win at Air Force. I did tell you to sell on Indiana. I thought that was the time to jump off the train there, and they did cover. But hey, you didn't lose him. You can just reinvest that money later, and I've got one for you. Pitt, I've been on those guys for 3 weeks now. One at UNC. They're going to beat Cal at home this week. And yes, Tennessee. I'm still going to hold on to my stock there. Maybe even buy a little bit more since it's going to be a little cheaper now because I do think they still have – I really hope they play good this week because I thought they would. I thought we were going to see a sharp Tennessee team at Arkansas. Go ahead.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I've been kind of, obviously you're as my stockbroker, I take your advice. I've been kind of overexposed on UNLV the last couple of weeks. I noticed that they're not on the report this week. So did we take a bath with our UNLV stock?
Why would UNLV stock, like we didn't take a bath with it. They lost that was an overtime game, right?
Yeah, but
44-41. I mean, and it was against Syracuse. We knew that was going to be a good game.
They were a touchdown favorite.
Okay.
They were a touchdown favorite.
I feel like my broker was, kind of pushing
I
me
don't
in the
think
UNLV
UNLV fell off the map, and I kind of like UNLV this week. I think they play Utah State, maybe. Utah State's been a really good team to pick on this year, so we might do that again. You do need to sell TCU. That was the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen in my life. I tweeted TCU as an official pick to cover 17 against a team who was the worst statistical offense in all of FBS in Houston. I turn on the TV and they've got 24 points in the first half. I'm done with TCU, so I'll be betting against those guys for the rest of the year.
Seems like a little bit of revenge, but it's fine.
If you want a team to buy a little bit, here's a team I like, Georgia Tech.
I feel like you're pandering here.
I like Georgia Tech.
I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should do that.
Good win over Duke. If you got them at the right time, they covered last week. I know the line got up there.
They got Notre Dame in 2 weeks, but
they also get to go play in the Chapel Hill Library this weekend, so that should be a
short-term
nice, smooth, easy win. And then they get Notre Dame in the bins. I think that's a game with Notre Dame. I really do. I think they got a chance to win that game. If they do, it's a 7-2 Georgia Tech team going into Miami. Or actually, Miami comes to Georgia Tech.
And let's just call it what it is. I mean, Georgia needs to be on upset alert this year. I mean, that's a Friday game, the day after Thanksgiving. Let's just go ahead and put it out there. Georgia Tech.
I'm taking Georgia Tech and whatever points you're giving me.
I don't know what you're doing with the Georgia Tech stuff, but I need you to stop. Like, do not put Georgia on upset alert. Like, we're not. Do you know what the record is the last 25 years of that game?
Kirby's calling
Georgia
out the fans,
Tech covered by
there's some unrest.
It was no sweat cover last week. Last year.
Last year, but when was the last time before that they covered?
I don't care if they win. That's not what we're worried about here.
The game this year's in Athens.
we are kind of worried about
Georgia Tech. It is where Tech wins.
We're worried about it a little bit. I think Georgia Tech
3 times
is.
In the last 25 years.
I like Georgia Tech. And last, obviously, Brock Glenn. I put on here, is there still a path to the playoff for FSU? But I think Roddy was talking about it during the game. Like that touchdown pass in the second quarter, probably one of the top 4 or 5 plays I've seen in college football, period. And who knows where the ceiling. Go ahead and mute me.
I'm just gonna go ahead and kick you off the stage. Yeah, that's just real quick, Roddy, before we get to Rodstradamus, the message boards. I work with some diehard UNC football fans, bro.
Getting lit up, I bet.
How empty it was at Keenan, and how empty it's gonna be again on Saturday. It's tough, dude. It's a tough scene. It really is. I hate that it all started with JMU hanging a 70 burger. Like I hate that on the inside. I really do.
Sad.
Okay.
I love Mac, but it's not a good situation right now.
No, but you know what? What goes up must come down. The ceiling is the roof. All right, week 7. You went 5-8 last week, Rodstradamus. For the season, you are 7 games below 500.
Was I on the right track last week? Let's see. Not on TCU. Duke plus 7.5. I was on the right track.
It's a bad beat.
Nice
although
job
that game
Georgia
closed at 9.5, so not a lot of CLV there, as the kids like to say. You had Missouri plus 2. Like
I had Missouri plus 2.
Nobody bullied you into making that pick. You thought that was actually going to happen. Yeah. Purdue plus 14.5. I would like to make the case that Purdue is the worst P4 team in America, and that includes UCLA, who's in the same conference. Purdue is terrible.
Yeah. Who did they play? What was I thinking?
I thought you took Wisconsin. I was going to thank you for the Wisconsin pick.
I took Purdue. I didn't think Wisconsin could score. They did 52.
Terrible.
52.
Yeah, they scored a little bit.
That was a bad side there. South Carolina plus 9.5. No. Tennessee minus 13.5. No. What happened with San Jose State?
They won by 5. Nevada just scored a ton of points. I was on the wrong side of that too, and I thought Ken was going to take care of us, but he didn't.
Yeah, no, he didn't. That's okay. All right, I got some for you this week.
Let's bounce back. Week 7.
A lot of big games this week.
There's
a lot
also
of dogs.
games every night of the week. If you're into that
we're not going Tuesday, Wednesday. We don't do Tuesday, Wednesday. We don't need that much skin in the game. All right, let's go Coastal plus the 10.
Oh, Roddy, why that's
Lock.
not nice. It's not nice.
You like that one?
No, it's
I
absolute
think
lock.
I think that's the right pick.
Yeah.
But I will be there, and I hope you're wrong. And you know what's great? A
Well,
couple
it's
years
just-
ago, you would have been
it's gonna
calling
cover.
this game, and now you get to go to Boulder to cover Prime. It's awesome. Happy for you. Am I wrong? No, I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong. Friday. God, I don't like any of these on Friday. I'll take Utah minus the 6.5.
Man.
The desert. Actually, give me Memphis minus the 8. No, we'll go Utah.
You're having a moment right now. You're like John Anthony and Teeth
Wow,
the Money.
I
You're just
don't know.
flipping coins on the floor.
Is that fishy? What's up, Doc?
I don't know.
Arizona State
Memphis.
has not thrown the ball well the entirety
Memphis-
of the season.
Oh, I was thinking Memphis. Memphis not a great road team, unless
really?
they go to Tallahassee.
Yeah, I was
That
gonna
game
say.
But
may not be
everybody's a-
happening, man. Like that.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
a
that's true.
pretty
hurricane bearing
significant
down.
storm barreling
Yeah.
down on
Yeah.
Tampa. Right
Yeah, my
now.
people in Florida, especially West Florida, like y'all take care, man, because that thing looks nasty.
My brother moved out of St. Pete, but he only went as far as Gainesville, and I'm like, is that far enough? Like I
It's
kind
not.
of feel like you should keep going.
Yeah, I'm not a hurricane expert, but they talked about how small this storm is and how much it's blown up, how quickly it went from a Cat 1 to a Cat 5, and that is scary, man. That's
Yeah.
stuff's scary.
Yeah. it's
All right,
wild.
let's keep it rolling. Give me Clemson minus the 20 at Wake.
You're just gonna ride Clemson, man. And I think you should. I think it's the play.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that place is going to be 60-70% orange on Saturday.
Yeah, I would say so. I'll take Georgia Tech minus the points at Carolina too.
I thought, wait, what was
Mhm.
this? I thought you
Mhm.
didn't want us talking about Georgia Tech, and now you're laying
Well,
points on the road
Look,
with your
you're the one
Jackets.
that's like they're put Georgia on upset alert. Like, no, let's slow down the talks there. But I think they beat Carolina. They're a better
That's a
football team than
nooner on
Carolina.
the C-Dub.
Also, Jeff Collins revenge game for Jeff Collins.
Yeah, come
I
on.
mean, people have said in the past it's going to mess up my hiking schedule actually, but we'll get.
You
it
know, they
figured out.
have this thing called the Varsity Network app, Roddy, where you
I don't
can
think it
listen
works on the
to
top
game.
of mountains, but maybe we'll do it. I'll
I think
listen to
you
the
give
Blitz.
it a shot.
Sometimes
That's
the Blitz
probably
starts.
exactly where it would.
Blitz starts at noon Eastern, dog. We know.
Let's
We
go.
got you. That's 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Please tune
Yeah.
into the Blitz. Give us a little shout out, man. Give us a little love, dude. Come on.
sure.
Let's get that
All
Rochester bump.
We'll make that happen.
Appreciate that.
This Washington Iowa line's a little fishy, but we're going to skip on down and go Oklahoma plus the 14 and a hook.
Red River. If that
Red
line
River.
moved to 14.5, that's a critical hook.
It's the one that
man.
I
You got to
see.
have that.
It's the one that I see for. I see 14 and a hook.
By
Doc,
the way, the fair's
All
in
right.
town this week. I'm thinking about going, taking the family, get some Amish donuts.
we missed the fair purposefully though because that thing is expensive.
Everything's expensive.
Give me Penn State minus the 5 at USC.
That line's up to 5. Golly.
5.5.
Oh, wait,
Nah,
I
it's
got
fine.
5 on
It's
ESPN
just,
bet.
It's just 5. It's
Wow.
just 5. Don't let the doc try to take
Thanks,
advantage
Doc.
of you.
Give me Cal plus 3 at Pitt.
Really?
Yeah.
You think they win?
No,
It's about time one of these things breaks Cal's way.
I don't like it.
Cal's
can not
fun,
like 'em,
man.
but you won't.
Cal
Cal
look,
is-
Cal's fun. That's a fun
I'm just
team.
trying to warn you. I mean, you're skipping UNLV and you're taking Cal. I don't understand it.
Who's UNLV playing? I'm not down with UNLV. I don't know if I've gotten down to them on my thing. Oh, this is only the top 25. Oh no, it's not. It's all games. But I did not have them written down. Give me Florida plus 15 at a hook.
That's a great play. That's a
Knoxville.
great play. That line opened at 17. Man. Florida's taking
Did
a
it?
lot of action.
Yeah.
Don't get merged. Don't, man.
Don't mess around and get merged.
Don't mess around and get merged.
Don't let that happen.
I think Tennessee probably wins, but I don't feel great about that. I will take Oregon plus the points.
I got 3.5.
3 and a hook.
Down to just
3.
Just three.
3.
Just 3.
Yeah, 3.
That'll be fun, man. I mean, we're going to talk
It'll be
about that
fun.
game a lot on Friday's show.
I'll also take West Virginia plus the points.
See, this
Okay.
is where
Okay.
things, man.
We're
I
going
don't-
off the
Love
rails.
it.
I don't trust West Virginia in this spot. I just don't.
Fair. It's
I
fair.
need to see it to believe it.
You know what they say? Shoot or shoot.
Yes.
And I got one more for you. Give me UCLA plus the points.
Why, dude? You are.
We're dipping into some Big Ten West, baby. We're dipping into some Big Ten West, baby. Let's go.
Just because
UCLA
UCLA has been covering spreads against the likes of LSU and Penn State and Oregon, now you think they're going to hang around with PJ Fleck rowing the boat in Pasadena?
Dang right. Yup. The physicality of UCLA shows up in a 3-point loss, but a cover, baby. Let's go.
Okay.
All right.
Hartzell messed up his hair. He's getting so worked up.
I've got a lot of hair, and people are like, are you going to get a haircut? And you know what I say to those
I cannot
people?
wait until Phil. I cannot wait until Phil tomorrow tells you that UCLA is the pick in this.
Maybe he will. That's a nice
He
tease.
might.
Phil will be on the show Wednesday with Wayne Cook, who's probably going to be.
Can I give one more?
Bonus?
Yeah, I want Syracuse at NC State.
That's a great play because NC State, like that garlic bread I was talking about earlier, when you stick it in the oven on broil, NC State is burnt to a crisp, cooked, not coming back. You can't scrape the burnt off of this thing. That's how cooked they are. Your kids are like, I'm not going to eat that, Dad. It's burnt.
If it's a little brown, my kids say that. Dad, it's burnt. It's not burnt. That's the best part. I did that on
how
purpose.
You try to scrape it off, try to save the grilled cheese because it's a little. Ain't no saving NC State, dude.
We haven't had grilled cheese in a while. Let me make that for dinner for the girls.
What kind of cheese do you put in a grilled cheese?
So for them, just American. Nice melty cheese that they love.
Yellow
for
American
us,
or white American?
Usually white because they like it better.
Yeah.
I don't think they taste that much different, but
they do. It's
I prefer the yellow. that's
American
literally what
tastes better than yellow American cheese.
Literally what my oldest said to me. Dad, I like the yellow. I like the white cheese on my sandwich. I was like, it's the same. It's both American cheese. She was like, no. The white tastes better.
It's very much not the same.
Anyway, for us, if I went for us, we would go with some sharp cheddar and then some sort of really melty cheese like Harvadi or something like that.
Okay.
Nice
maybe like a little side of like tomato soup, and just like.
Oh yeah, well, I go tomato and bacon on my grilled cheese, and then we're going straight into that tomato soup.
I'm hungry, man. I'm starving.
Stop! It's soup season too,
Roddy. Before you leave,
we may crank up some chili next week.
It is. It was 51 degrees when I woke up this morning in the Piedmont of North Carolina. So
your boy's just been waiting for this chili season. I need a new Dutch oven. If anybody has Dutch oven recommendations that are not super expensive, I'm not trying to break the bank here, but if you got a Dutch oven recommendation, holla at your boy.
Okay, there you go. Roddy, you doing XM before you got to head out to Boulder? You're going to be on the satellite radios this week?
Yep. Tuesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, 12 to 3 with Ben Hartsock. And then Thursday morning, 8 to 10 on ACC radio with Wes Drewham. And then
you back on that Falcons drug?
10:15 Eastern time.
Have you relapsed? That's a yes.
Tentatively.
That's a yes, dude.
I'm like rubbing my gums with it right now.
So yes. we got the doctor all in on the Bears. You and I are starting to relapse on the Falcons. It's bad, dude. It's really bad. It's really bad.
Not good.
Good show today, boys. Thanks to Kevin Ingram for hopping on and educating everybody about the pride.
I might pop on to Felder Friday this week too. Let me know what time you guys are.
I'll send you a link. I will not be on the show. I got a pinch hitter on Friday because I'm off the grid, dude.
I can't just surprise your pinch hitter. Where are you going?
I'm going to Harrisonburg. The game's Thursday night. I can't.
Oh yeah,
man. I can't wake up and do a show Friday morning.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, I'm gonna turn back the clock, dude. It's gonna be like. Yes, I'm turning back the clock.
You got no kids?
Well, just be careful.
No, the kids will be there.
You're not turning back any clocks. Just be careful, man.
I'm turning back the clock.
You're not.
Be careful when you turn.
You're not
a
spring chicken anymore.
We're going back 2
decades. It may take you a couple of days to recover from what used to take you a couple hours.
No, we're turning back the clock, man. Bridgeport Stadium's going to be alive on Thursday night because the Hartzell family will be in attendance. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks to Kevin Ingram for joining us, for Hot Rod, for the Doc. I'm Hartzell. We'll talk to y'all Wednesday.
Peace.